What's going on, everyone? It is me, Alone, and before we get started on this Fallout 76 video, I just want to say thank you. Yesterday's video got over 30,000 views. I don't know where you all came from, but it was incredible. So thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for the support. And I want to say as well, if you do like watching my content, I also stream on Twitch. I'll include the link to my Twitch page in the description below, so please check it out if you're interested. But with that out of the way, let's get to the Fallout 76 content. So I think I speak for most Fallout fans when I say that when Fallout 4 didn't really have much mention or presence of the Enclave, some of us were like, well, where are they? You know, I like the Enclave, even though they were beaten pretty decisively in Fallout 3. They're still a pretty interesting faction, and I know myself and a lot of other Fallout fans would love to see them return in a future game, such as for Fallout 76. And on that point, I think I have a pretty credible theory as to why the Enclave could make their return in Fallout 76. Now, I want to preface this by saying this is entirely theory and speculation. I'm not trying to present this as real fact, which is why I included the word theory in the title of this video. We're just having a bit of fun right now with the lore of Fallout. I think it's pretty interesting and I love to speculate. So please do so with me as well in the comments below. Let me know what you think about my theory. So over on Reddit, the user DeHeroBigBoy made a really interesting post about Fallout 4 and its connection to Fallout 76. I'll include a link to that post in the description below. But this post was titled West Virginia Radio Distress Signal Found in Fallout 4. The post goes on by stating that I was doing a Brotherhood playthrough when I stumbled across the radio tower 3SMU81. When you view the attached terminal and choose the option to extend the tower's radio satellites, a few radio signals pop up, one of which being the Greenbrier radio signal. As many of you may have heard, the Greenbrier is a resort in West Virginia that has a huge bunker built underneath to serve as an emergency shelter for the US Congress and other US officials during the Cold War. Congress has about 535 members, and according to the Greenbrier wiki page, the bunker could house about 1,000 and had enough supplies for 30 years. I think that this could be a big part of Fallout 76, even if the game mostly takes place in Virginia, as the Greenbrier is only 10 miles away from Virginia's western border with West Virginia. Now, I really like this guy's theory, even though there might be some issues with it, because the bunker that he's referring to, I think, is the one that's actually in Fallout 4, and not actually the one that's in West Virginia. You'll notice that the name of the distress signal in Fallout 4 is called the Greenbrier distress signal with an AR at the end, and the actual one in Western Virginia has an ER. So it's my assumption that BGS only really adopted the name of this real-life actual bunker and applied it to the game of Fallout 4. But this post did get me thinking. If Fallout 76 is indeed set in Western Virginia, as the song of the Fallout 76 trailer suggests, then could this real-life bunker, Greenbrier, actually make an appearance, because it is an actual thing that was built in the 1950s. We'll get into the full history in a second, but this particular bunker in West Virginia began construction in 1958. So it's not a stretch to say that even though the Fallout universe diverged from our world beginning from around the 1940s, I think it's still possible that this bunker was also built in Fallout's world just like it was in ours. And if this is the case, if this was a secret bunker for US Congress and US officials, then could the Enclave in the Fallout universe have taken advantage of it during the Great War? I think so, but first, let's get into the history and the actual location of the Greenbrier bunker, and then we'll get into why the Enclave might actually have resided there in the Fallout universe. So Wikipedia states that the Greenbrier is a luxury resort located in the Allegheny Mountains near White Sulphur Springs in Greenbrier County, West Virginia, in the United States. The Greenbrier is also the site of a massive underground bunker that was meant to serve as an emergency shelter for the United States Congress during the Cold War. The bunker was codenamed Project Greek Island. And now I'm going to take you to a really helpful article on npr.org that talks about the actual history of the Greenbrier bunker. Picking at parts of the article itself, it states that a secret bunker lay in wait for the apocalypse behind a giant reinforced steel door. For 30 years, it was kept secret. Hidden in West Virginia's Greenbrier Resort was a massive bomb shelter stocked with supplies for members of Congress in case of an emergency. It's a giant concrete box nestled into a hillside in White Sulphur Springs, West Virginia. The area has a 7,000-foot landing strip for a town of about 3,000 people, so the government could fly their people here in case of war and go to the bunker that's under the Greenbrier. The reinforced bunker would house every member of the House and Senate in the event of nuclear Armageddon. Behind the 3-foot thick concrete walls is a space about the size of a Walmart. The air intake system is so intricate, it was meant to filter out radiation, that it creates a vacuum-like effect when you walk in. The sleeping quarters includes rows of metal bunk beds. All they had for private items that you could lock up were a small drawer right underneath the beds. You could put your personal items in here. For 30 years, every one of these 1,100 beds was assigned to somebody. In the late 1950s, President Dwight Eisenhower started to worry about how to maintain law and order in America in the aftermath of a nuclear war. Eisenhower decided the Greenbrier would be a perfect cover for a congressional bunker. In 1958, government workers broke ground on what they called Project Greek Island. And on the screen right now, I'm going to be showing you some pictures of the Greenbrier bunker, including this picture from a magazine in 1962, which exemplifies how, at the time, there was a huge push to build underground bunkers and other shelters that were capable of protecting against nuclear fallout and Armageddon. So when I just described to you then the thinking behind building this underground bunker known as the Greenbrier or Project Greek Island, didn't it sound very similar to how in Fallout, the US government got worried about the onset of nuclear war, so they decided to build giant underground bunkers known as vaults as part of Project Safehouse? The parallels are almost certainly there, and we do know as well that the American government had many other bunkers that were exclusively for their use in the event in case of a nuclear war. So they had some of the vaults that were private for themselves, and they also had other bunkers and bases. One of the main ones, of course, being the Poseidon oil rig that housed the main group of the Enclave when the nuclear war was about to occur. So because of the timelines and the similarities between this point in history in our world and also the Fallout universe, again, I don't think it's a stretch to say that the Greenbrier bunker was actually something that existed in Fallout. And if that is true, I think we can make the assumption that once the war against the Chinese pretty much had finished because the US beat them in Anchorage and the US started to suspect that the Chinese would probably want to retaliate, that one of the locations that they escaped to was this underground bunker that was located in Western Virginia. Because the Enclave didn't just go to the Poseidon oil rig. Yes, that was the main group that had the president, and that group would form the main part of the Enclave in the Fallout universe in years to come. However, there were other locations that were secret and protected around the world that some parts of the US government also went to as well. In fact, the Fallout Wiki explicitly states this, when it says that finally and relatively early in the fateful year of 2077, with the nation ultimately headed directly for nuclear devastation, the President of the United States and various other members of the continuity of government fell back to multiple secretive, heavily fortified locations all around the continent. Many members of the Enclave retreated to these remote locations in other parts of the world, but when the bombs began to drop, they lost communications with the main group that was to be headquartered at the Poseidon oil rig in the Pacific Ocean, from which the United States will continue to exist and wage war on China, with the eventual goal of retaking and restoring the continental United States and wiping out communism forever. So as was mentioned there, the US government didn't all just go to Poseidon oil rig. They went to different locations, and because this bunker was specifically built for the US Congress and US officials in case of nuclear war, I'm going to assume that some of these members of the US government made their way to the Greenbrier bunker. So if that's the case, could this group make their return in Fallout 76 because that bunker is located in West Virginia? I think it's actually very possible. The one thing going against this theory, and I'm going to admit this right now, is that the main group at the Poseidon Energy oil rig that became the Enclave eventually, they lost communications with other parts of the US government once the nuclear bombs dropped. So if we assume that this potential group that was located at the Greenbrier bunker eventually became known as the Enclave, they would have had to have made connection with the main group of the Enclave that was located at the Poseidon oil rig. If that didn't happen, then they'd just be a completely different group that were just part of the US government. How else would they know of the Enclave if they completely lost connection and communications with the main group that was located on the oil rig? However, and I don't think the Fallout lore actually clarifies this point, so again, it's speculation, but if that group somehow regained connection to the main Enclave group that was located at the Poseidon oil rig, then perhaps they actually joined the Enclave and became a part of their efforts, but they were just located in West Virginia. I think this could be a really cool way to actually incorporate the Enclave back into Fallout 76 and have them make their return. Especially because the events of Fallout 76 are taking place in the year 2102, which is many years before even the beginning of Fallout 3, which took place in the year 2277. So the Enclave was still around, they were still at the oil rig, so they still would have been alive and functioning quite well. This is the perfect time to bring back the Enclave, and I think this is a perfect way to do so because it's consistent with the actual pre-existing lore and history of West Virginia and potentially of the Fallout universe. So anyways, Wastelanders, I would love to hear your thoughts about my theory in the comments below. Let me know what you think, and until next time, this has been the Lone Vault Wanderer. Please take care of yourself, and would you kindly keep fighting the good fight.